Atrévete a desnudarte. 6 indicadores.
There to strip naked. 6 non-negotiable indicators to manage your firm. Jorge Saldivar Cerda, partner director of businesses in Becerril, Coca and Becerril, Mexico. Moderator Pablo Armando, partner of Noetinger and Armando lawyers, Argentina. Welcome everybody to this panel
Título de
with this curious heading, Dare to Strip Naked. Well, in principle, this is an initiative of the Committee for the Administration of Law Offices, and we'd like to thank ASIPI for giving us the space, and Luis and Martin Pitaluga, who have motivated us and pushed us to get here. An important disclaimer before getting started: the title is bold, but we're not going to strip here. We're practicing with Jorge to do a little bit of dancing here, but it wouldn't be a good show for the last day. We didn't want you to leave ASIPI Panama with a bad image. But I would like to get ahead of why we call this panel this name, why so aggressive, and such, to say something. To strip naked is an invitation, is this proposal to show ourselves not only as specialists in IP, most of us are lawyers, agents for IP, engineers, and specialists on the topic, but definitely beyond our clients and our work we do in several aspects, legal and juridical. We provide a service, and if we provide a service, the offices we work on in are service providers. So definitely we work in service provider companies that are not different from other similar companies. And we can compare to consultants, to software developers, tourism agencies, and financial agencies. A lot of companies in different fields of the industry, but always in providing services. I will hear that people say that a legal office is not the same as all the companies I mentioned, and it might be true. And we've detected some differences. Obviously, we provide professional services, and often we do this at a personal level. These are professional and personal services. And the second great difference that we found that we want to share as well is that law offices are usually led by lawyers or specialists, but not necessarily experts in management or business management. The point is that on the first point we brought up, it's true, it's professional and personal services, but this shouldn't create a hurdle or an obstacle to try to adopt tools, meters, indicators, and best practices that other actors could have in the service industry. And with respect to the second thing, it's also true that in most cases, they're not professionals in management, the ones who lead companies. But we have to move towards making more professional that management, and without losing the role of lawyers and IP specialists. But we are heading service companies, and as such, we have to see what other tools and mechanisms are adopted in the service industry. Prior to that, and also linked to this need of stripping naked, this invitation to strip naked, we detected some phrases that perhaps are not advertising phrases, that perhaps demeaning ones that we say about ourselves. For example, legal offices are different. The same rules as other companies don't apply to us. lawyers are bad managers. It could be the case in many cases, but not necessarily that's the case. This one is funny, and I believe we all said it. I studied to be a lawyer because I didn't like math. It's impossible to measure with KPIs. Task carried out in a legal firm is very subjective. What we do, these are professional services. How do you measure the activity or delivery of a lawyer who files a motion or prepares a lawsuit in a court? How do you measure the delivery of paralegal that files for a patent? And the last one, but it could be many more, but these are the ones I decided to bring up. The fear that becoming more professional, more institutional, it could make you lose personally or but within the logic or whatever we want to do in the firm is our own culture and aspirations and desires of how we want to manage the law firm. We can maintain personal and professional and family working, but in a more institutional and professional manner. To this end, I invite you to use the our president with his chainsaw and cut away there's this prejudice, these barriers, these excuses we use to not focus on the topic and avoid it. Definitely, the proposal of today's space for today's session is to try uh, pull back the curtains. This first barrier that we have that do not allow us to see what more can we do and how can we improve. A few things, a lot in depth or not, but it can be done. To this end, then we're going to try to see some tools that have been tested for other organizations and are applicable to ours. And regarding the last point, all tools available, and Jorge will talk about many of them. We don't have to take them as a closed package, whether we apply all of them across the board or none. They can be applied in different aspects of the firm. Fraction could be financial indicators, collection, performance measurement, engagement of the activities we do in marketing or in LinkedIn, for example. It could also be at a more operational level of being able, so that the team leader, not necessarily the managing partner, that the team leader can have indicators and meters to measure the team for the delivery and quality of the services provided. So, well, we brought to teach us in all this, we brought Jorge Saldivar. Jorge's partner at Becerril, the consultancy and business company he has, and is founder of retail company. He's 30 years in retail, consumption, and entertainment. He has a solid practice in business management, marketing with experience in Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Riddle entrepreneurship. He's founder of Riddle Community. Retail community is a story you can also tell. The first company focused on retail in Mexico, and in his experience, he's not been so distant from what we do. He's been brand manager in Procter and Gamble, commercial and new business VP in Blockbuster, BP Latam, general manager in Mexico for Nintendo, and also general manager in Mexico for Fox Entertainment. He studied to be an industrial engineer. He has an MBA, and he has the certified in design thinking in MIT, and to be a professional counselor. Jorge, it's all yours. Invite us to strip naked. Thank you, Pablo. We'll start the presentation with a brief video that most likely some of you will recognize.
spilling over you in a minute. They're cheering out there. You did that. Now get out there and do your stuff.
God, is there anyone I don't get bollocked by?
Out!
Baby, take off your dress. Yes, yes, yes. You can leave your hat on. You can leave your hat on. You can leave your hat on. Go over there. Turn on the light. No. All the lights. Come back here. Stand on that chair. Ooh, baby. That's right. Raise your arms in the air. Now shake them. Give me reason to live. You give me reason to live. You give me reason to live. You give me reason to live. Listen to what I say. You can't leave your hat on, baby.
Bueno,
Well, what better video than this scene from the Full Monty film to represent how difficult it is to strip in public? It might be difficult because we don't know what's under the veil, or difficult because what's under the veil is something we don't like, or is it difficult because what's under the veil we know we don't like it and we don't know how to improve it, right? And I never spoke about stripping our bodies in public because what we're going to talk about now is how can we strip naked our company to see underneath what there's to be improved. First of all, I would like to thank ASIPI for the opportunity of talking to you. I think this is a conversation, not a conference, so if anybody has any comment, welcome. I think it will help to enrich, and what we'll do in the next 30 minutes, more or less, is basically try to propose 6 focus areas that could be useful to optimize your legal firms with certain key indicators to consider that could be useful in this function, but most importantly is that we can step out of here a little bit more inspired and prepared to try to question certain things that we will be successful in practice. Some disclaimers are important. First of all, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer, and I would like to give you a point of view from the side of the business. The second thing I would like to propose is that during the next half hour, take off your lawyer hat and put on your entrepreneur hat, because what we're going to try to do is to see our firms as businesses. Third, the KPIs or the that we're going to propose here, the truth is that they're not perfect. I believe they may vary for a legal firm depending on the size and the structure and the company's goals. So this list is not perfect. Most likely you'll be able to complement it according to your firm. However, I will dare to propose 6 focus areas that could be important to be considered in this optimization of a legal firm. Some key principles that I would like you to bear in mind. First, legal firms are businesses and you are entrepreneurs. Like it or not, you're entrepreneurs. Secondly, what are businesses for? Businesses are to generate profit and equity. That's what a business is used for. And unfortunately or fortunately, there's only one way to generate profit in a business. Either you sell more, obviously charging for it, or spending less. There's no other way to improve their bottom line. And we can say that there are certain functions that are more devoted to executing and operating, but at the end of the day, it's a mathematical formula. You cannot get more profit if you don't do either one of those. And we can also ask ourselves in the work in our company, who sells more, who spends less? Because these are strategic functions that are very important that we will be talking about a little bit more specifically right now. And from here, I will there, like I said, to propose 6 focus areas to achieve what I call now be an exponential law firm. What is this? It's a legal firm that dares to evolve in the times we're living, where during the conference we've spoken a lot about technology, artificial intelligence, and certain challenges we have, but the idea is to be in constant evolution to take advantage of all these tools that technology puts in our favor. So we can start with these 6 focus areas. First, I believe that we have to unbutton our financials, show our financials, and we'll discuss several indicators here that most likely you already look into, but it's worthwhile for you to have in mind. Evidently, every starts through sales. It starts in billing, where the recommendation is that we truly have periodic work processes, ideally every month, where we're checking our financial statements, our profit and loss statements to try to see these variables. For first of all, sales, net billing. Second, a topic that during these days, the truth is that I've heard many of you talk about this, is collections. The days it takes us to collect a bill, an invoice. And in the end of the day, that's our cash flow sum in some work tables. We were saying what kills companies is not having profits, is not to have cash flow in my account. So if we cannot quickly turn bills into money, it's going to be difficult to do this. And now I understand the challenges. The industry is not easy to collect quick, and we know that it takes a certain time to collect from our customers. It could be different for each one of the firms. The ideal thing is that we can measure it and try to improve it gradually, depending on the situations we have in our own companies. Then we have profits. At the end of the day, net profit after expenses and costs, most likely that's the indicator that we should focus more on when we manage our firm. I had a boss that used to say, look, sales are vanity, profit is reality. It's useless to say, oh, we bill a lot if we don't collect. And if that does not generate profits after the costs and expenses we have, so it's a very important variable. And evidently, what percentage of what I'm billing or selling ends up being a profit? I don't know if it's happened to you that you look at your P&L. It doesn't matter what the size of your firm. On the top, you'll have sales, which is 100%. And then we start going down the P&L, and when we get down, we see nothing left or very little left, or we have less than what we expected. And the thing is that companies actually at the end of the day are a monster eating up sales. For some reason we have sales on top, and then you have the monster that starts eating everything up until at the end we don't have what we need. One of our jobs as an entrepreneur is to put a lock on that monster, try to truly understand line by line of the profit and loss statement to see where there are opportunities. And I don't like to call them savings. I think savings sometimes are poorly focused. The idea is to see how can we optimize our investments so that they're truly having a return at the end of the day. And something we like to tell our customers in business consultancy is that first of all, you have to define opportunity. Often we think that the idea is to always sell more. 9 out of 10 companies that look for us, what they want to do is to sell more. And normally what we suggest is that they go back and try to work with a pyramid that the first 3 levels are as follows. First in the base, definitely you have sales. If your legal firm doesn't sell, forget about the rest. And everybody has a different sales level. But there are firms and companies that already have a certain sales level that possibly their first opportunity is not to sell more, because in the second level you have the margin or the profit they generate. If you sell and you don't generate the necessary profit, the reality is that I wouldn't dare to sell more. Probably is best to stop and try to optimize the second level, which is margin. But there's companies that are already selling at a certain level. They're generating decent profits, and there are opportunities in level 3, which is order. If I sell, I make money, but I go crazy. Well, probably you're not optimizing the third level. So this is dynamic work where first I make sure that I sell, then I make sure that I generate my margin or profit, and then I make sure that I have some order. And then I start again, because now I'm ready to go to the next sales level. So the next thing that I would suggest is ask yourselves, where is your opportunity? Analyze if I truly have to sell more, or can I optimize what I already have somehow and generate more order? And well, evidently the whole issue of having expenses and profits for matters or projects as cost centers is very important, because sometimes we have very big bags accumulating expenses where sometimes we do not know what matter or what client or what correspondent certain expenses correspond to. And often what happens with companies is that there are clients or matters that are not profitable, clients or matters where we're losing money. And companies don't work if you have clients or matters where you lose money. Often you have the whole issue there is that you say, oh, we do it because we want to provide service or we want to pamper a client. Well, there could be strategic roles with the clients, and I agree, but generally speaking, we should try to do that whatever we do generates money at the end of the day. And well, finally, the return on investment. I believe that in the measure that we see each category, each client, each matter as a project where we're expecting to have a return, probably it will be more optimal to unbutton our financial statements. The first area of focus it is that you constantly observe your financial statements and unveil them, because it's not just checking your financial statements, but ideally that every month you generate actions that can lead you to improvement. I believe that competition among companies sometimes keeps us busy, but sincerely the idea is to improve versus ourselves. So if you're capable of checking this and sharing this with your teams, sharing this with your partners, and defining an action plan to improve, perhaps that could help you. So first of all, unbuttoning your financial statements. Second, let's talk a little bit about productivity. We have to unplug that productivity, that efficiency, and we'll talk about some indicators here that I would like to suggest to you. Evidently, measuring and documenting the amount of matters or actions completed. And I know there are times that there are external reasons like government or certain rules that do not allow you to complete your affairs, but try to measure that number every year, and possibly that's a more basic reason that we're observing at a given point in time. The average time to solve matters at the end of the day evidently is not the same to have a certain number of affairs in lengthy times and extensions instead of the time that you had planned initially. So that time is important. Success rate in litigations. At the end of the day, we have to document that, and possibly many of these variables, productivity variables, are being considered in your firms, but it's also important that we document them formally, and that they are present in those business reviews you carry out, if you have them, and if you don't have them, to start seeing the progress every year in these variables. It's very important the number of matters and billable hours per lawyer. At the end of the day, the payroll and the people working with us and collaborates with us, well, it's like a game of chess where we have to ensure that each one of the persons there is profitable, and also ensure that what do we have to do to make them profitable and deliver better work. But at the end of the day, we should be measuring the productivity per collaborator that we're having at different levels. And on the other hand, what is the index of the use of the resources we have? What percentage of those resources are devoted to tasks that are viable at the end of the day, and what percentage of activities not necessarily are related to sales? Sincerely, the higher percentages that is related to sales and billing, most likely we will have an opportunity to improve even more our bottom line. Second area, productivity and efficiency. Third, evidently we'll be making progress where people will be important. And I believe that during the past 3 days that I've been listening to all of you, I believe that there's no topic that's more recurrent than people independently of clients and collaborators. Let's talk a little bit about clients. Try to measure what percentage of your business, what percentage of your billing, ideally the profit that it generates comes from recurrent customers, the ones that we already have, and the new clients. Just ask yourselves, if I have a way to measure how many new customers I had last year, how many this year, and how do they compare, because at the end of the day, that's an important source of growth. Well, not always do you have to have new clients. Also at the level of what we already know what to do, and I recommend a lot here. I don't dare to do here, but there's a matrix called the answer matrix that basically tries to diagram how can we grow a business, and the easiest quadrant where we can grow is selling what we know how to do to the clients we already have. But when you analyze the services that are more profitable for you and the best clients you have, regularly there are services that are not sold to all customers. So that's the simplest opportunity. The customers we already have, sell them everything we know how to do. Then you have other quadrants, what you know how to do with new clients, what we do not know how to do with existing clients, and the most difficult one is what don't we know how to do with things we don't have. But that's the next level. But ask yourselves, are we already selling the services, and can we treat better our best clients? And perhaps we could have an opportunity there. But anyways, new and recurrent clients, and what happens, or what rate or percentage of the time of those clients, those recurrent clients, do we have? How long do these clients last with us? Is there opportunity for retaining them? Because in service companies, it's also very common to say, and you probably heard this, the hunters and the farmers. Hunters are the ones that are going to go out looking for new clients, more sales. And the farmers are the ones who will operate those accounts we already have to ensure customer service and to retain them. Just ask yourselves, what percentage of the people working with you, including partners, are hunters, and what percentage are farmers? Because it's useless to bring new clients that will leave us if we're not going to treat them like we should. But also try to strike a balance there. Well, first you have to measure. I also suggest that you carry out a client segmentation analysis per value. It's common that we talk about the 80-20 here. What customers represent 80% of our sales or our profits? The truth is that we like more, and we base this on a commercial methodology I'll recommend later, that it proposes that we work more in the 96-4. Get the 80-20 first, and out of that 20%, take out the 20% to get to 16 and add it on. So see what customers represent 96% of your billing or your profit, and you'll be scared. We've carried out this analysis often. I would like to see different outcomes, but regularly between 30 and 50% of your clients only represent 4% of your sales. So the next question is, why do we have them if they represent such low figures in our sales? And then you have the answers. Oh, I like the guy. I have to provide service. I have to have a presence. And we do not suggest that you fire them, because the idea is to have clients, but at least make sure that you're allocating the correct resources to those clients that represent only 4% of your sales, because regularly we devote more time to them. And what the methodology proposes that we can reallocate the time so that they get the time they deserve, and the exceeding time be allocated to clients that represent 96% of our sales. And we can take a 96.4 out of that segment as well, but at the end of the day, identify your best customers, assign the better resource time to them, and regularly what happens is that you recoup that 4% by treating better the ones that represent 96%. You don't even have to bring in new customers because you're somehow assigning time and resources in the correct manner. So I would suggest that you run that analysis because it's quite interesting. Customer satisfaction, surveys, evaluations, and the percentage response percentage we have. Often this is done in the context of rankings, or perhaps each firm has its own methodology to measure this, but that we truly measure adequately the customer satisfaction and not do this as an administrative process. That's where the absolute truth lies, because often we're not seeing latent needs our customers have and that could improve our businesses. The NPS, I don't know if you've heard about this, it's very common in retail companies, but it's basically when we ask our customers from 0 to 10, would you recommend us at the end of the day? And I believe that in the service business, the recommendations become more and more important, because it's true that marketing works. It's true that we can invest in certain strategies to bring in new customers, but the truth is that if a customer does not recommend us, it will be difficult for us to retain that customer and generate new customers. So the Net Promoter Score is truly an interesting tool as well. The mean scoring and the positioning got in the ranking, like it or not, ranking is very important in this industry and in service industry. So, and I believe that simply we would have to try to optimize them, use it in our favor, so this can support our growth. And positioning in social media. In a table a couple of days ago, we were talking with an expert in marketing who told us, I believe that yes, but we have to evolve. Instead of looking for views and clicks, we have to find a more organic growth, a more long-term growth that truly generates engagement. And we'll talk about this with our clients. But social networks are important, and analyze where we're investing, because sometimes we invest because everybody's investing there, or because it's fashionable in a social network. Sometimes social networks can be misaligned with the type of business we have. But try to measure that positioning that we have in the networks. Third is focus area on the clients. What are we measuring with regards to customer satisfaction, and how could we improve it? I always like to show this image where who would have thought that a hole and a piece of plastic could be a difference in your choice of barber, because I can see my phone while I'm getting a haircut. So these are insights, these are needs, are latent, and that it's worthwhile to try to unveil with our clients. And I know that hair salon has got nothing to do with a law firm, but just they are related because they're both service industries. And these are the insights that don't come up in surveys, because quantitative surveys often are very superficial. Just ask yourselves, when was the last time that you sat down to talk for half an hour or 1 hour with a client or a correspondent, but not to generate business, but to ask them, what could I do different so as to have more business with you, but truly trying to go deeper into the topic. It could be that some do it, but unfortunately in service companies, sometimes we are so immersed in operations, so immersed in trying to sell more, that sometimes we don't have the time to devote the necessary time to the customers and try to unveil this latent opportunities. And well, eventually we were getting to communications and marketing, and the truth is, if you don't show, you don't sell, and we have to show to sell. And I'll share with you here some indicators that I believe are worthwhile talking about marketing or communications. First, evidently, traffic. We have to measure traffic. We have to measure clicks. We have to measure exposures. But I like to talk about this word that is somewhat esoteric, which is engagement. We'll hear that, oh, engagement, we have to increase engagement to sell more. And then somebody asks, what is engagement? Because it sounds nice, but it's difficult to define. What marketing theory says is that it's useless to have clicks, it's useless to be seen if the customer doesn't interact with you. Messages, comments, interactions, and that interaction rate versus visits, views, clicks that you're getting, that's engagement. But an easier way to define it is the emotional relations we generate with our customers. And you ask yourself, because you can ask yourself about investment in social networks or having an event or coming to a conference. I come over here and already have appointments, or I come here and I try to generate an emotional relations with my customers, with my possible or potential correspondents or business partners, because it's useless if you have a lot of appointments but you don't connect. This is not what I'm saying. What I heard from I heard this, and people were saying that we come here to measure trust. Doesn't matter uh, how many appointments you have, but what you do with them. They're difficult to measure. We have to see how much engagement we're generating, the amount of leads that we're generating in time. Finally, marketing, unfortunately, it's a funnel. In all marketing activities, something goes in and something goes out. It doesn't matter if it's social network or an event or a cocktail or a conference, how much is going in and how much is coming out. So in the measure that we can document the leads that we're generating and looking at at productivity, we can also determine whether we want to continue making the effort or if we can do something different to try to optimize that productivity of the efforts. Increasing this conversion of leads into customers in percentage and arriving at the end of the day to marketing investment for customer acquired, which is how much I spend per customer I get, how much do I spend for what I receive, how much am I spending for what I end up selling. I think this is a marketing measure that continues to be valid. Participation and productivity in events and conferences that I just mentioned. Somebody told me a while ago, you have to be there. And I completely agree with you, Pablo. You have to be there, of course, but you also have to measure how does how do you translate into productivity the presence you have in any of these means that we're talking about. And finally, as well, this debate and this measurement between what do I develop? Do I develop my personal brand or the firm brand? Because they're different things. My recommendation is that evidently many of you, the personal brand is very strong. They're truly icons in the industry, but it's also worthwhile that that personal brand is transferred to the firm brand, because unfortunately you cannot guarantee that it will be there forever. So you have to build a firm brand, because this will prevail in time in a service industry. So teach to sell. Fifth, in this conference we also spoke a lot about technology, and nobody is free from using technology in their favor. I believe the pandemic sped up the matter that it doesn't matter if you're a lawyer, painter, you sell produce, you have services or whatever. You have to pay attention to technology, because I believe that from here onwards that it will not stop, and you've heard that many times before. First, the use of technological tools to manage the operation of the firm. I believe that we cannot have an Excel that will be better than a system. To do it by hand, it will be better than operating a technological tool. And everybody at their own level, I believe that there are cheap, expensive, free of charge tools and that we could develop on our own. But you have to see how can we optimize this operation to bring down expenses in a point in time. The implementation of emerging technologies. Once again, we will not talk about it because we've heard a lot about AI, CRM tools and models to manage our customers. But the other day, somebody told me a phrase that I believe was interesting regarding AI. He said, well, AI will not make us more intelligent, but it will not be more intelligent to not use AI. So I believe it's something there that there are morality issues or whether that will eliminate jobs and things like that. But I think it's worthwhile seeing once again how can we use technology in our favor. Cybersecurity, okay, in a company, in a law firm, security and how delicate data privacy is, you know better than me. This whole issue, it's important. We have to measure it. You have to see what's the level of security we have, and if we have to try to improve it, the level of automation of processes. The truth is that if a service company analyzes processes and sees what technology can we use to create automation, what is true regarding AI is that the truth is that there will be no way for repetitive processes to do those better than AI. There will be no way. And perhaps we'll have to accept this and see how can we use this in favor of optimizing our firms. And we'll try to measure and see how much are we investing in innovation and research and development in our own firms. And basically here it's just a matter of asking ourselves, do we reward or do we sanction those who try to change things? We manage our firms trying to avoid new ideas because that makes things complicated, generates more work, questions the status quo, or change the way we do things? Or do we promote it so that people have ideas, make mistakes, fail, and we can generate new ways to do things? The most advanced firms in terms of services around the world, I believe, in terms of this measure, not only are they measuring new ideas that take place in a year, but they're also measuring and promoting and rewarding failure. You reward failure or you sanction it. It's likely that this is a good question we could ask ourselves, because if you're sanctioning or punishing for failure, people will be afraid of coming up with new ideas or testing things. It could be a cliche, but ask yourselves, are we really doing this? Because it's the only way we can question what we're doing and do something different. So fifth, use technology and innovate. And well, six, we were going to get here eventually, and I propose that you strip your human resources, because people are the most important thing in a service industry or company. I couldn't say something different. And there might be indicators that we can use to here. Measure staff turnaround, not generally speaking, but at the different levels, in the entry level, associates, partners. I mean, at all levels, try to measure this and see if we have to do something different to control churn. What's the average stay in our company? Do they arrive and leave quick? Well, we all know with the millennials and Gen Z, it's a challenge because of the way they think and what they want, and short stays and a lot of things. That's why we also have to start measuring. There is a professional training, professional development and training plan, a career plan. This is difficult because we were not prepared to have a career plan, and we cannot have a perfect career plan, because millennials perhaps are expecting from the beginning exactly in what month they're going to be promoted and they're going to go up in the ladder. But they do have a point. It would be worthwhile to see for each firm, how much can we advance in the career plan to try to retain talent more, because the most expensive thing for us is that valuable talent leaves. We're measuring satisfaction and performance of our collaborators. And here I was reading a book a while ago called The Energy Advantages. I recommend it. Basically, it talks about a lot of things on how to maximize human efforts, but one of the chapters spoke about rigor without caring for your people is brutal. Caring without rigorousness will not be valued. But what we're trying to do is try to strike a balance between both. Not only measure performance, because people do want limits and boundaries. They want to make progress. They want to develop professionally and contribute to the firm. But they also want to be treated properly, and treating properly is generic. We have to define for each firm or in each culture what does this mean. But walk out of here keeping in your mind the balance we have to strike between caring and rigor, and try to measure this through these surveys. It's very important. The identification of strategic duties in your firm and coverage. What does this mean? Sometimes we guide ourselves more by the structure in a given moment in time of the partners, people that collaborate in our firms. But I also suggest that looking at this more like entrepreneurs, first of all, ask yourselves, you as a firm leader, what are you good at? Are you good at selling? Are you good at managing? Are you good at bringing expenses down? I'm sorry to say that because there are owners that are useless in all fields, and I haven't seen any owner that are good for everything. And those who are useless, keep them locked up at home. Maybe they shouldn't be operating. But ask yourself, what am I good for? Because if you're good in sales and you're managing, the opportunity cost is very high. Or the other way around. Here we've sent as firms those who are good for at selling, or we push them because you have to go to the Congress. Maybe I'm making this up and this doesn't happen, but I believe that we have to ask ourselves, because apart from our legal duties or our functional duties, there's also a strategic duty depending on what you have to do and in the measure that you identify and place the people there to empower those skills they have. You'll probably be more successful in what you're doing. So ask yourselves that question and try to cover those strategic functions, and above all, try to understand them. And on the other hand, also something that is quite recurrent, I've heard around the tables, is the method for the development of leadership and succession. Succession is a topic in service companies. And there's no formula. There are companies that are quite large with 5 brothers, 18 nephews, that they can see who the successor will be. So you have to professionalize or sell. It's not the only option, but sometimes companies have one or more successors. Sometimes it's an important factor. You don't know how many small and medium-sized companies in Mexico that we have to work on. We see that the owner is authoritarian and inherited great business, but he waits until his children are 40 years old before he puts them into the business, and they expect a smooth transition, but the children are not up to it. And so this also requires a plan. It requires incorporating them at an early age. You have to train them and develop them, and down the road we'll be able to see whether they're the true successors. But at the end of the day, you require a process that has to be respected. And building upon this, I would like to share with you a couple of charts where I would like to share with you some concepts. I don't know if somebody wants to help me here. Anybody here married? What's your name? Margarita. Margarita, I'll ask you a question. Could you tell me if you love your husband? Yes. Everybody knows that I do. Now, could you tell me in what exact day of your life you started loving your husband? One morning, 7 years. It's quite clear for you. Sometimes it's difficult to understand, to state what is the exact day, because love is a collection of emotions. The first time you saw him, that you went out, that he touched your hand, that he kissed you, and you did what you can't talk about. I mean, that whole collection of emotions, someday it turns into love. Well, leadership is exactly the same. It is not an event. It's a process that moves along bit by bit, and I would like to share with you some thoughts from this individual called Simon Sinek that are quite interesting. Well, first of all, leadership is a collection of attitudes and situations. It's not an event. We develop this bit by bit. It's a transition sometimes. We hire somebody or we promote a partner, an associate to partner, and you believe that they will automatically have all the skills. That's not the case. We ourselves also have to develop them. And something that's very important. We can learn and improve if even by being leaders of a company and owners or partners, and you don't invest on yourselves to continue learning, reading books, having mentors, going to courses, listening to people, perhaps you will not develop your leadership 100%. It's got nothing to do with rank. Sometimes the best ideas or the most entrepreneurial spirits in lower levels. Ask yourselves, ideas in your firm are only ideas of the partner or the associates, or you also take advantage of the ideas of the younger people that also come in with other chips and have great ideas. Use those resources, and so and this sounds very obvious, and it's all to do with people. Sometimes we believe that leadership is looking at the P&L or checking the variables or bringing down expenses, all that we talked about, which is important, but leadership has to do with people, and sometimes we forget that, and doesn't have to do with being on people's backs, subsidize them, and do their work. You just have to create the correct environment so that they can work better, because if you do the same work as your people, you have an enormous opportunity cost. Ask yourself, where am I truly adding value? And when you're adding value, try to put your time there and allow people to become responsible for what they have to do. So, this whole issue of leadership and these thoughts are quite interesting. And lastly, I would like to ask you, if I drop this pen, what is going to happen? It will just fall, right? If I drop it again, what will happen? It will drop again. If I do that 500 times, what's going to happen? It's going to also fall to the ground. Why? Because these are laws of physics. Does somebody question gravity? Does somebody think that I will let go of it and I will just float there in the air? Or, for example, when we plant apple seeds, what are you going to get when you put water on and the tree grows? An apple tree. Does anybody down the road, does anybody think, no, I'm going to get a pawpaw tree? No, because it's nature. We don't question it. The same applies to leadership. In leadership, there's also laws. But we believe there's no laws. We believe things happen by chance. We believe that our business is doing poorly because the situation's affecting it and the government and I don't know what else. Then we think that it's got nothing to do with those laws. And the truth is that I would like to share lastly with you some laws of this leadership dimension that also have them. For example, first of all, your organization is designed for its results. Don't think it's by chance. You design the organization that is causing these results. Secondly, your performance is the effect of the organization. At the end of the day, it's all cause and effect, and in this case, it's got a lot to do with outcomes. And very importantly, your leaders are a mirror of your leadership. When you hire somebody and the person doesn't work, where some element of your organization doesn't have a good performance, I would say the first person you have to look into is yourself, because most of the time we spit on talent, we block it, we do not develop it or don't create the environment. So there now to strip naked and look at yourself in the mirror, because probably that is what is affecting the performance of your people. Your leadership, as we said, is the result of your development. If something is not working, you as a leader try to ask for help, because something that we discussed the other day as well in another table is that unfortunately in Latin America we think that the word vulnerability is the same as weakness, and we do not dare to strip naked and show our problems, to see what is truly not working and ask for help, right? And you can ask for help in many ways. And finally, leadership is about the bus, not only the passengers. And this phrase was written by Clayton Christensen in a treaty that was written about 30 years ago. It's called the Innovator's Dilemma. And I'm amazed how this phrase continues to be valid 35 years later. Because sometimes we are too concerned about people. And of course, you have to be good at hiring, you have to do good recruiting. But what he says is that almost anybody half aligned with the profile you're looking for will work if you create the right environment. But what I want to transmit here with this loss finally is that leadership is up to you. And of course, it's very important, or the 6 focus areas that I'm proposing are important, and all these indicators that, rest assured, they're not perfect. You'll go back and we will most likely will change, add, delete. But what's more important in all this is that you do put on the leader hat, the hat that perhaps the only one capable of adjusting the environment so your collaborators lead you to the outcomes you want to. Then the topic of people and leadership is the most important focus area. And at the end of the day, I believe that the big question is, are you going to dare to strip naked? Are you going to dare to see what you have under the veil? What are your problems? What are the areas for improvement? Measure, well, if you can't measure, you can't improve. Sometimes the most important thing is not just measuring because I know it's bad, I just forget about it because I create more work and more problem. And I believe that daring to strip naked and daring to see what possibilities or room for improvement is truly out there in your companies, what it will truly allow us to improve as leaders, professionals, as a legal firm. I hope I added value. I hope you can do something with this and inspires you and it challenges you. And thank you, everybody.
Tenemos unos minutitos para unas preguntas. Ahí hay una. Mientras va el micrófono,
we have some time for questions. While you have the microphone, I would like to ask you a question, specific question linked to the last thing you mentioned, and with some conversations that I've had during the week. And this with respect to the home office. The typical question is, well, and you, how do you work, hybrid, full presence, etc. And I've heard in more than one opportunity that I feel that we're not so as productive at home. And haven't heard this just one, but several times. The feeling is valid and as valid as an indicator, but it's the only one that we have to use to measure whether profitability is linked or not to the home office. And this is strongly linked with to respect the salaries and so on. So the specific question is whether you have suggestions or indicator, or how can we measure the profit, let's say, or in home office. And an interesting question also came up in the tables. I think it's a combination. I believe that the first thing I would like to tell you is that I believe that the home office, from my point of view, is that it's here to stay. And my second point of view is that it's not yet sorted out. If only there were a book, an expert, an article to teach us how to do it, and there's none. I think the recipe is different for each company, and it's a combination of functional measurements. I do believe that we have to be very close to people to see how they're feeling with home office. Very, very, very. We have to measure productivity of the people that we allow them to be home for a couple of days. But we've seen, and I'll base myself on the experience of the firm, that we recently had some movements. We spent 3 days in the office and 2 days at home. Let's see. I believe that somebody was also saying the other day, it depends on the city. But in Mexico City, we have people with certain duties that sometimes it takes them an hour and a half to come and go from home, 3 hours every day. Expenses, clothes, and food. That when we send them to home for 2 days, this has been extremely positive in the sense that it's an immediate raise. They recover 3 hours of their day, they spend more time with their family, and they're being even more productive than what they used to be. Well, it's not for every position, I would say. There are certain positions that probably they have to spend all 5 days of the week in the office because these are strategic positions. But there can also be some flexibility so that they can combine their time, okay? So I believe that for me, the answer is that there's no answer. I would suggest that we have to test and see what can work and what cannot, and adjust this to the needs of your firm. But what I do believe is that there is an opportunity. The pandemic changed the way we think, and the reality is that if you look this coldly, not necessarily all duties should be at the office. Some of them not even one day in a week. So that is my opinion. Hello? Okay. First of all, congratulations for your presentation. I loved it. The truth is that I believe that is quite true, that lawyers are trained in university to be technicians in law, but not to be law entrepreneurs. And on a specific point that you mentioned, you were talking about the difference between hunters and farmers. What usually happens in the legal sector is that most of the traditional model anchors itself on the figure of rainmakers, lawyers with great contacts and relations that increase the billing in the business. But the question is, these in turn face a challenge, which is the lawyers that execute the service should also assume commercial duties. That could somehow collapse the workflow you have because you have two fronts to deal with. So my question is there any space for law firms to develop their own sales force that undoubtedly can be complemented with the rainmaker scheme they have, but that can develop a parallel sales force that also feeds the company revenues through another channel? Well, my opinion is yes, but I would go back to what we talked about. First of all, ask yourselves, in the existing resources of your company, who's good for what? Because I believe that in the office there's people that are good selling, and they're also lawyers, and even if they're not, I think they should have a basic technical knowledge to be able to sell in these occasions. At the end of the day, we would have to train them. And a short while ago, we were talking about this topic where we said, look, how do you sell in these congresses? You sell playing paddle or playing golf, going to the cocktails or getting appointments or going to the lectures or having breakfast with people. There's a lot of ways to sell, and not all of them are the same. Perhaps I'm not the super party man and going to all the parties and interact with everybody, but perhaps I'd like to play paddle. Okay, then you pick that. I'm saying this because I believe that there's no single sales profile. I think there could be more commercial profiles that are more prone to selling because there are hundreds of books on how to be an effective salesperson, but I think it's still an art. It truly is an art. And there are people that are naturals and others that are not. So that would be my recommendation. The answer is that I believe there could be some room, some space, but that person has to have a basic technical knowledge to be able to carry out the duties. But I believe that the most immediate opportunity is that within the existing resources that you have, check and see whether making the best use to send those who like it and know how to sell and are good at selling. We have a question back there. Thank you. Hello. Yes, one of the difficulties that we're clearly having is retaining talent. I'm sorry, what? Retaining talent. Oh, okay. The question I have for you, based on your experience of so many years, could you give us an idea, what do young people value? I mean, these new generations, the 5 priorities that they have into account to say, well, I'll stay here apart from the organization we're in. What are their values and preferences that you have at the time of staying in that job?
Creo que, otra vez, posiblemente.
Well, probably my answer is evading the question, but I believe that there's no recipe, unfortunately. What I'll tell you is what we've observed with the customers we have. I believe salary continues to be important. Even if they say no, that they don't want a car or buy a house or have a property or stay for a while. I think salary is a given. Salary could not be a bad salary because people will leave. The second thing, I think it would summarize several things, and I would say it would be flexibility. The models, they be flexible models where we can find the right model, and in terms of how many days they spend at the office, schedules, dress code, caring and rigor. I think we have to look for that balance, but trying to be flexible. Look, I'll give you an example that amazes me. I don't know if you heard that Amazon recently decided to go back to 5 days in the office. Well, in Mexico, I have 2 or 3 friends that work in Amazon that are now looking for a job right now. In Amazon, where you say, oh, they're the most innovative people, and it's not working. Well, apparently it's not working for them. And I also believe that young people, something that we've seen, and I don't know, many of you have children, and always seems to me that the way you manage collaborators is related to how you manage your children. I think young people want boundaries. They do want them. They don't want to, to be a military academy or something like that. But I mean, boundaries and limits help you to grow, and young people want to grow. Perhaps they don't have the aspirations we have that on day one that you joined the law firms. You wanted to be the owner or a partner. Perhaps there's people that don't want to be partners. They want to contribute in another manner. And we go back to the whole issue of flexibility. I believe that we're still looking for the model. And we are a generation that we've had to work for a while with millennials, and now with Gen Z. It's ridiculous because Gen Z is those who are 13, 14 through 27. They could be parents or not the small ones, but my impression is that I don't think it's the first time it happens. I think it's been happening generation to generation, and each generation faces the entry of the new ones that we have to decipher. What I would recommend is talk to them, find out what they want, and try to get to a balance that is productive for the company. Because once again, going back to the original point of this presentation, you legal firms are businesses. You have to generate money, but to generate money, you need the people, and to have the people, you have to understand them and be close to them. I would add, as millennial and my team is mostly centennials, how important it is to listen to them, because there's no one-size-fits-all formula. And depending on the talent you have in your firm, that each one of us in our firms, given the culture of the firm itself, that's why they're there. And if they've been for 2 or 3 years in our company, they're still there for some reason. So openly, you can go and listen to them and ask them what they want. And that exercise, to do that exercise, you should do the exercise at least once a year and keep on doing it, because projects and ideals also change. It's not the same, the interest a 23, 24-year-old versus a 29-year-old who's about to get married or about to have children, even if they belong to the same generation. So I think it's important to actively and receptively listen. Yes, look, sometimes one thinks that, well, people are not foolish. Recently, my wife read an article that proposed that we should ask our employees how much would they like to make, what would be their ideal salary. A crazy but very interesting exercise. My wife's company is very small. She has about 15 people. She did that. She carried out a survey. How much would you like to make, individual and secret? 4 out of 5 only said 50% more than what they make, and they have small salaries. The only one who said twice as much is the one that has 2 children and a lot of problems. I mean, people are not foolish. People know they cannot make 3 times as much. And people know that they cannot spend all week at home without going to the office. We all know that there are boundaries and limits, and we want them to be applied on us. But we also have to find a balance between that flexibility and rigor, right? Yes. Well, we ran out of time. They're telling us lunch is served. So once again, thank you, ASIPI, and to all of you who decided to participate here. And thank you, Jorge, for generosity, and Enrique Camaño, your partner, who generously has offered you that you come here and has been the engine of this panel and this opportunity. So thank you, everybody, once again. Thank you.
almuerzo en el Society Café.
Lunch in Society Cafe until 2 p.m. and